But again, we were shorthanded, we were outnumbered, um, we were doing things that probably wouldn't normally be done. Um, had, you know, had we had the manpower and everything else, we were shorthanded. The guys on the ground were getting their butts kicked, and we had to support them. So we did what we had to do.
And you were the only bombing squadron?
No, there were a couple other bombing squadrons. The Navy had what they call fighter bombers,
Okay.
which were basically fighters, the Corsairs and the Wildcats and that, but they carried bombs under their wings. They didn't have bomb bays, but they carried bombs under their wings. They had, and they would do strafing missions. They would do ground support. We were the only B-26 squadron, but like I said, they had a couple of other fighter bomber squadrons. P-51s, they kind of flew, cover for us. But and they did a lot of strafing missions too. I mean, they weren't good at it. 51s were too fast. They just and they didn't have enough. Couldn't carry enough firepower.
Mm-hmm.
The B-26 was basically a flying gun platform, for want of anything else. We could carry a lot of bombs, we could carry a lot of ammunition, we could carry a lot of armament. And basically it was a well-designed killing machine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it was. I mean, it was probably during World War II, because the B-26 was a carryover from World War II.
Mm-hmm.
In World War II, it was probably one of the better night fighters and ground support bombers that we had in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
But it had good range, big engines, fast, carried good bomb load. So, I mean, it was just one hell of an airplane.
Yeah. Did you, so how long did you fly those bombing missions for? For 3 years, though? 2 years?
No, I flew from July of 1950 until the end of February of 51. So
Okay.
basically 8 months.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then I came back to the United States and went to the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia, and got into criminal investigation department of the Air Force.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I spent the rest of my career in the Air Force as a criminal investigator.
Oh, wow. Did you make some pretty good friends during those 8 months of the bomb missions? Did you kept in touch with any of those people?
No.
Or? Okay.
No. I have always kind of run my life in segments.
Mm-hmm.
As I finished one segment of it,
Yeah.
moved on to something else, that was history.
Right.
That was history. So
Right.
then I would take, like my engineering years in Chicago, that was another block of time in my life.
Right.
And then when I got into sales, I kind of left all that back in Chicago and came to California.
Right.
So that I've kind of always done that. I have not tried to carry things along.
Right.
I went online just because you and I were talking, and I thought maybe you might be interested in that. But that's the first time I looked at our squadron. I didn't even know we had a squadron
Website?
website.
Yeah.
And I looked at it, and I saw a couple of names I remember, but that it doesn't interest me anymore. That was a period in my life that I did what I had to do, and
Right.
went someplace else.
So you started doing criminal investigation. What types of things did you do with that?
Well, all kinds of things. I got into theft investigation. There's a lot of crooks in any part of the world, but in the service there's all kinds of crooks.
Yeah.
I mean, the cooks steal stuff out of the mess hall and sell it in town, the butter, the bacon, the hams, the steaks,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. The guys in the motor pool steal gas and sell it. We had drug dealers, bringing drugs into the base. So I worked with the Chicago Police Department on drug investigation for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it was, and then I got into, one of the things I was doing was aircraft accident investigation. My specialty was to look for sabotage. So when a plane crashed, they would send out a team to investigate the crash, why it went down, what happened, was it mechanical failure, was it pilot error, did something go wrong? My specialty was to look at everybody that was connected with the airplane, the
Mhm.
ground crews, the people that were on the plane themselves, or was there some reason they wanted that plane to crash?
Mm-hmm.
And then, there were times when, a crew chief would get mad, or somebody in the ground crew would get mad and leave a bolt off or something, and somebody would rack up the plane. Luckily, I never found one where somebody got killed because of sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
I had a couple of cases where pilots committed suicide.
Mm.
By flying their planes into the ground. Just all different kinds of things in investigating. But it became a very interesting life. I mean, because I traveled all over the world,
Mm.
doing these things and investigating these accidents. I mean, I was in Italy for 2 weeks on accident investigation. I was in Libya, and we talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I got to go a lot of different places, see a lot of different people, and meet, and do a lot of different things.
During that year of
Yeah, during those years.
and then you did engineering after that, or what was next?
Well, and then when I got out, I had studied to be a mechanical engineer, okay, and I had taken engineering courses while I was in the service,
Mm-hmm.
basically correspondence schools. So when I got out, I passed the state examination for mechanical engineers in the state of Illinois. You didn't have to have a degree, but you had to pass the examination.
Hmm.
So I didn't get my degree until later, and then I got a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Chicago.
Mm.
But one of the things I did in the service, and I got into this by accident, I got on the Air Force golf team,
Mm.
and there was 10 of us that were on the golf team, and I got on it because I was playing golf, and I didn't know it at the time. I was playing with a colonel, and I beat his pants. I mean, I think I don't know, I shot par. I didn't think I was under par or anything else. And he wanted to know where I learned to play and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, just thought about trying out for the golf team. And I said, I didn't even know there was a golf team. And so I did, and I got to play in a lot of tournaments. It was promotional stuff.
Mhm.
It was showing the flag. We went to the Bob Hope tournament. We went to the Bing Crosby tournament.
Were you on TV for that?
Back then, we didn't. I don't know. There wasn't much TV,
Mm.
but I got to go to the Masters twice. And I got to meet a lot of players.
Arnold Palmer.
I met Arnold Palmer.
Who else?
It just Sam Snead.
Oh wow.
All the old timers. Chichi Rodriguez. It just it goes on and on. you weren't buddy with them or anything else, and you know, but you got to meet them, you got to talk to them, you got to listen to them. I met a lot of movie stars. I met Bob Hope, I met Bing Crosby, you know, and it just, you know, it was just something else in my life that a lot of people have never experienced.
Yeah, that's interesting. Can you tell that story about how they got you out of Libya
Yeah.
to take you to
Yeah, I
California?
mean, you know, like I said, I was in the Libyan desert, and it was hot, windy, sandy, just nasty, and we were investigating an airplane accident. And a Jeep drives up and asks for me, and I get in the Jeep and go back to the base, and he's got orders, and the guy says, "Who do you know?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "We've got orders to ship you back to Monterey, California, by the fastest possible means, and we got a B-47 taken off, you know, for the States." So I got a ride in the B-47 back across the Atlantic, air-to-air refueling, and 2 days later I was at Pebble Beach playing golf. But who did I know? I didn't know anybody, but my name come up on the golf team, and you know.
They figured out where you were.
Yeah, they just figured out where I was at and flew me back. So.
That's hilarious.
But,
And then so then you started getting into engineering
yeah,
after that, or?
When I decided I was going to get out and not make the Air Force a career, I'd always been interested in engineering.
Mm.
So I was home on leave, and I was living in Chicago at the time. I was stationed in Upper Michigan, and I was home on leave, and it was I had 30 days leave coming, or 40 days leave coming. So it was in November. So I looked in the paper and looked for an engineering job, and interviewed for a couple of companies. I interviewed at IBM, and I to go and look at IBM and their charcoal gray suits and white shirts and black wingtip shoes, and said, "Shit, that's just like the service.
Yeah.
I don't want to get over that." So a family-owned company called Continental Industrial Engineers, and they hired me. So I went to work while I was home on leave. I went to work for them, and basically I was doing sales drawings for them, design drawings for them,
Mm-hmm.
and because I didn't at that time I didn't have my engineering license,
Mm-hmm.
and they thought that I probably wouldn't come back to work for them. So after I got my discharge, the first Monday after I got my discharge, I was back to work for them. And about a month later, I took my exam for my mechanical engineering degree, or license, and got that. But we designed heat treating furnaces for the metal industry, melding furnaces, copper melders, aluminum melders. One of the things we designed was a heat treating furnace to heat treat missiles.
Mm.
These were big gantry furnaces. They would dig a big hole in the ground and line it with fire brick and put the burners in there and everything else. And they would bring the missile over on a crane and stick it down into the furnace, cover it, do the heat treating, take it out, and then quench it and so on and so forth. So I worked on those. Then we were bought out by a competitor, because we were a small family-owned company called Lindbergh Engineering, and they did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to work for them. And then, what did I do after that? I went to work for United Conveyor Company, and we did conveying systems for ashes and so on for steam generating plants. So all these steam generating plants around here, both coal-fired and oil-fired, we built the equipment to handle the waste.
Mm.
And then we got into handling atomic waste, and that's basically when I left the company. They were just expanding into the nuclear plants, and that was 71. I
Mhm.
got here. So,
California, and then you started doing sales.
yeah. Went to work for a company called Illinois Range, and our big customer was McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
And so I supplied kitchens to McDonald's. When I started with Illinois Range, we were working on McDonald's number 2014 or 2015, I don't remember. But right now, McDonald's store numbers are up at 35,000 plus.
Oh wow.
So, I went through the growth years at McDonald's.
Yeah.
And, and then.
Sure, it's good in the stock market.
Yeah. So, and so I have been basically since 1971 associated in the food service industry.
Okay.
And
Wow.
with McDonald's as my main customer.
Yeah.
Basically I worked for two companies. I worked for Illinois Range, and then I left them and went to work for Multiplex, who does the beverage systems for McDonald's.
Mm.
And Multiplex was bought out by Manitowoc, and then I retired from Manitowoc 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and worked as a consultant for them for a year, and then retired. As far as that's concerned, I retired completely.
And now what are you doing?
Now I work for another family-owned company called Western Pacific Distributors, and basically I'm working on their beverage equipment.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do.
Yeah. And how many kids do you have?
Pardon?
How many kids do you have?
I have 3.
And was that from your first wife?
Yep.
Where did you meet her? Or where
Well,
at?
I met her when I was in the service in Chicago. She's a Chicago native,
Mhm.
or a suburban native, and I met her at a dance, and really, didn't pay that much attention to her. Danced with her a couple of times and everything else, and then I went on a mission for about 30 or 45 days, like 5 or 6 weeks.
Mhm.
Came back, and a buddy of mine said, "Hey, we're going bowling tonight." He said, "You want to go with us? We got some gals wanting to meet, go bowling." And so I went bowling with him, and she was there, and so we started dating and got married.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 21.
Okay. And her? How old is she?
She was 19.
Okay.
And actually, she was 18 when we got married. We got married on May 22nd, 1952, and she turned 19 on June 7th.
Okay. And what was her name?
I gotta stop and think.
Probably haven't thought about that in a while.
Yeah, Dolores.
Okay.
Her name was, and her last name was Mine, M-E-Y-N.
Okay.
That was funny, because when I asked her her name, she said, "Mine." I said, "I know it's yours. What's your name?" So she finally told me. But
Hey,
yeah,
little
and
puppy.
we had 3 kids. Jeff, the boy,
Yeah.
and 2 girls,
Okay.
Vicky and Sherry.
Did you have them right away, basically?
No, we had them. Jeff was born in 54. He was born in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And Vicky was born 2 years later, and Sherry was born 2 years after that. So they're all 2 years apart. Come on, baby.
Okay.
Come on.
And then how long were you married to her for?
19 years I was married to her.
Okay. And how many kids do you have? Grandkids do you have from those 3 kids?
I've got 4 from Sherry,
Oh wow.
1 from Vicky, and my son adopted 4.
Oh wow.
So I've got one one grandchild from Vicky, and 1 great grandchild. I've got the 4 grandkids from Sherry, and
Hey, puppy.
the 4 adopted grandkids from my son, And then I've got,
Great grandchildren or no?
I've got seven great grandchildren.
Oh wow! And I bet
And-
those will start increasing a lot.
I don't know. I can honestly say I have never met one of my great grandchildren.
Yeah.
Well, except my great grandchild in Texas. That's
Okay.
the only one I met.
But
None of my son's great grandkids have I met.
But the grandkids you've met though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then how'd you meet Michelle out here in California or?
Yeah, I met Michelle at a LifeSpring training.
Oh, that's right. That's something my dad and my mom were into,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Tell me about.
That's actually I met your dad too.
Yeah, tell me about that. How'd you get into that and all that?
You know,
Or what was it?
it was that was back in the '70s, and again that was the late '70s, early '80s. It was a self-awareness training,
Mm-hmm.
and basically I got introduced to it through a dental technician.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to the training and did the training, did the advanced training, and started volunteering and as a team member and helping them run the trainings and everything else. And your mom and your dad both came through the training.
Where in Long Beach or where was this?
In Anaheim, in Orange. The final office was in Orange. But, I mean, it was, there were, basically the two big ones were LifeSpring and Est
Mm-hmm.
at that time. And it was a time of self-awareness and everything else. And then Michelle did the training, I met her. And we, just didn't date or anything else. And I don't know how many years passed, but Nancy, your Aunt Nancy
Mhm.
did the training also. And I bumped into Nancy someplace, and she said Michelle's dog had just died, and she was feeling pretty blue. I ought to call her. So I called her, and we went out on a date, and we started going out every now and then and everything else, and we ended up getting married.
That's awesome. When did you get married? What year was that?
Well, we've been married, we were married 20 years in last November, so.
Oh, okay. So you were okay. I didn't know. I kind of thought my memory was that you were already married when I was born, but that's not true.
No.
You were married when I was like 8 or something like that, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we lived in sin for a few years. Yeah, and then we moved in down the street.
I remember that house.
Yeah,
Yep.
and in fact, that's where we got married. Well, we got married in church, but we were living there when we got married.
Yeah. And what's it been like for you to get to know Michelle's family?
Oh, you don't want me to go there. They're a bunch of characters.
Yeah.
I ask Michelle every morning, how did I get involved in this? I mean, basically, it's a good group. Her mom, your grandmother, is just a wonderful woman.
Yeah.
There are a couple of kooks in the family, but basically, it's a good, solid family.
Yeah.
And again, it's another phase in my life of
Right.
being involved in here and buying this house and remodeling it, again, that was another phase.
Yeah. So,
So,
so what are some things in your 81 years? What are some life lessons that you've learned? You'd say, like what,
I guess the biggest one is, just take things as they come. There are things you can change in your life, and there are things you can't change in your life. and you just gotta be smart enough to know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to change the things that you can't change. I learned a long time ago, I can't change other people.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what I do, I cannot change them. They're gonna be the same no matter what I do. But I can change my outlook towards them and my attitude towards them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I can do.
And then if you do that, then they might end up changing
Yeah, well,
anyway,
you know,
right? Or who
yeah,
knows?
Yeah, but that's their choice.
Their choice,
But
yeah.
I can't change them. They can change themselves.
Oh, okay, I see.
So I think that has been the biggest lesson in my life. Just to accept the things that come into your life and do the best you can with them. And just don't fight them. Don't fight them. I mean, you don't have to like them, but I mean, banging your head against the wall is not going to get you anyplace,
Mm-hmm.
except it's going to get you a headache. That's. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing I've learned.
Yeah.
And you know, and to accept people who the way they are. I mean, I have met a lot of people in my life that I, really couldn't stand. But just accept them and work around them or stay out of their way. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had bosses that were the biggest pains in the neck, in the world. But I outlasted them all. So I'm still here. They're gone.
Did you grow up with any religion in your family? Were your mom and dad, were they a certain religion?
No, I grew up kind of non-denominational.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a Catholic neighborhood.
Mm.
Most of my friends were Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
So I did attend a Catholic church. I studied the Catholic Catechism. But no, my first wife was German Lutheran,
Mm.
belonged to the Missouri Synod. I was baptized as a Lutheran.
Mm-hmm.
I got married in the Lutheran church. All my kids are Lutheran.
Mm-hmm.
My daughters, both of them, are real heavy into the Lutheran church.
Mm-hmm.
And they volunteer all the time. I was an elder in the Lutheran church.
Oh, wow.
And president of the men's club. So when I lived in Chicago and was married to Dolores, we went to church every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
3 kids and mom and dad. And I was real active in the church.
Mm-hmm.
I helped build our new church.
Oh, wow.
Built a playground. It was just, it was another time of life.
Yeah.
Now, when I got divorced, I wasn't excommunicated from the church,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't take communion anymore,
Mm-hmm.
which, doesn't break my heart. But, so I just kind of got away from it. Again, when I set that aside and moved out here, it was just a different time in my life.
Right.
Do I believe in a higher power? Yeah, I sure do. Because
Yeah.
I couldn't have got where I am on my own.
Yeah,
So
that's cool. And your mom and dad, did they grow up when they were kids?
my mom was a Presbyterian.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, my grandfather built the local church,
Right.
and he was a real staunch Christian guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he drank
Mm-hmm.
and smoked cigars, but I mean, he was a good Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, he supported the church and donated the land and built the church and everything else.
That's really neat.
But my mom used to make us go to Sunday school. Not every Sunday, but as often as she could talk us into it.
Yeah.
And of course, in the service, back early service, you had to go to church.
Mm.
On Sunday, you had to go to church. Now, you could go to the Catholic church or you could go to the non-denominational service. And if you were Jewish, on Saturday, you went to synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
So that was required. So, you know, I've never really gotten away from the church, but since I left Chicago, I've never really belonged to a church.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just not, I guess I'm not a joiner. I don't belong to the VFW, I don't belong to the American Legion. I guess I'm not that type.
Yeah. And your dad, did he grow up as a little kid? Did he grow up as any?
I don't think my dad ever saw the inside of a church.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just, basically my dad was a hoodlum. He was a gangster.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was very intelligent, very skilled. He was a top-notch tool and die maker, and he could have made a mint just working as a tool and die maker.
Mm-hmm.
But he chose, you know, he'd rather be a bootlegger and a gambler and
Yeah.
all around, you know, badass. You can cut that part out if you want. But, you know, no, he was, I mean, he just, I don't know. Like I said, he was very intelligent, very skilled. I can remember him during World War II. He got a hold of some material, some wool. And don't ask me where he got it because I don't know. But he made himself a suit and made my mom a suit. You know, he was very skilled over the sewing machine. He could darn socks. I mean, he could take a watch apart, a wristwatch apart, and put it back together again.
Really?
Well, that's just the kind of guy he was. But he would rather spend his time drinking and gambling and doing all kinds of other things rather than
Yeah.
be a father and a role model.
Yeah. So, when did your mom and dad pass away?
My mom died at the age of 54,
Mm.
so that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
My dad lived to be, I think, 78.
Mm.
But as far, I think maybe the last 3 or 4 months of his life he didn't drink.
Okay.
Up until that time he drank and smoked and everything else.
Yeah.
But he had emphysema. I think his cause of death was congestive heart failure,
Mm-hmm.
but he was in the hospital with emphysema
What was his name?
Cyril,
Cyril.
Cyril.
And your mom's name?
Helen.
Helen. So did you have any male role models in your life since your dad wasn't too much, like any uncles or anybody who's
Yeah,
kind of like a male?
My Uncle Sam was chief of police of Rochester, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And later on he was mayor of the town and everything else. But
Mm.
he was kind of my role model. Sam was just a good hard worker. And my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather was kind of my first role model. He was a hard worker, ran his farm and everything else, and just took care of things that had to be taken care of. So he was kind of my role model.
That's cool. What's your opinion of how society has changed over the last 50 years? Can you give me maybe some positives and some negatives? And
Well, the positives are the advancements that we've made in technologies,
Mm-hmm.
in medical, in mechanical. The fact that, I grew up with airplanes that had wooden propellers and fabric wings. And first plane I flew was a Piper Cub. And it would do 60 miles an hour.
mm-hmm.
and that's what the tailwind. And you know, you look at today's technology, and in just that short period of time, in my lifespan, that, you know, now we have jumbo jets, and they fly at 600 miles an hour. And I'm always amazed when I fly across the country. I mean, I go to Boston every once in a while. You know, I fly to Boston in 5 hours. It used to take 6 months on a sailing ship to go from Boston to San Francisco,
Yeah.
clipper ship, and they used to go around the Horn, down around South America, and up. Or if you went wagon train, it took you 6 months to go on a wagon train before the railroads and that. So that never ceases to amaze me. How we have grown as a world, and the world has got smaller and smaller and smaller. You know, we never used to worry about what they did in the Near East.
Yeah.
We could care less about Iran and Iraq and Saudi Arabia, except we got oil from them. And now, what they do affects us. And I think that's good and it's bad.
Right.
So, now, you know, we're at the 20th anniversary of the LA riots. And to me, that was about the most stupidest thing in the world. I think the Los Angeles police were totally useless as far as that riot went. And if it hadn't been for the National Guard, they'd probably still been burning the town.
Yeah.
But again, we haven't got much beyond that, because you look at Detroit, and if the hockey team wins, they burn the town down. If the hockey team loses, they burn the town down.
Yeah.
The same way with the football team and all that. So there's still that element out there that has not advanced socially, I guess it is, or with education.
Yeah.
I think that's the one thing that if I could change, that would be it. To educate these people, educate all the people, and so that they could work, they could make a living. I think, to me, welfare should be done away with. I think people should be helped, but I don't think it's the government's position or place to help them.
Yeah.
It used to be, I mean, I grew up on welfare, because I mean, that was the only thing going back in the day for you.
Yeah.
But it used to be, it was the churches, the neighborhood, and everything else, and helped people that needed help.
Right.
And I still feel that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one thing I've always admired about the Mormon Church, and is their ability to help people, you know, in disasters and everything else, or not even in disasters. If people need help in the Mormon community, they get it. I know a lot of Mormons. I mean, I put it almost every McDonald's in Salt Lake City and in the surrounding area.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
So I've got a lot of friends up there. All the McDonald's franchisees, or most of them are Mormon. I know them all. I used to spend a lot of time in Salt Lake City. I was always just amazed at their willingness to help one another. So, and it's the same way with the Salvation Army. I'm not too fond of the Red Cross, but Salvation Army's always been that way. If somebody needed help, the Salvation Army was there to help them. And they didn't ask you if you know what religion you were, whether you were green, brown, black, yellow, or whatever you were.
Yeah.
They just helped you.
Teach them how to fish. Don't just give them a fish, right?
Right.
So you grew up, and you lived through the civil rights movement also, right? What are some of your memories of it? You said you lived in some segregated towns, right?